y'all doing? My name's Jackie Hill, and I am an alcoholic. Thank you for, we made a deal, actually, when he joined this home group. He said, well, I'll chair the meeting in January if you speak at one of them. So, he thinks you have to do for your home group. But here we go. Just to let you know, my sobriety date is October 28th of 2020. This is my home group, Keeping It Sober group, on Tuesdays and Saturday nights. And I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor, and we all got a little God, and that's just kind of the qualifier for me today. This building is my second home. Any AA building, really, I can say is my second home because I feel most comfortable. As a matter of fact, I remember when I first came into the rooms of AA, I felt an immediate ease and comfort coming into these rooms, and I knew that I belonged somewhere. And it was really quite an astonishment to me. So I was born and raised in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, back in the Midwest. We are Midwesterners, not a Yankee, but people kind of get that confused, so let's clear it up. And grew up in a little Catholic family up in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and had a great childhood, absolutely great childhood. My dad was a Master Sergeant of the Illinois State Police Force and spent his whole life taking care of being in that realm and did many different types of services. My mother was a homemaker until my brother went to college, and then she became a secretary at one of the local elementary schools. I have an older brother, Don. He's passed away. I had an older sister, and I had the middle sister, and then 4 years later they had me. And so that family of six, raised in a little Catholic town up there in Buffalo Grove. So I was exposed to a religious background that my family impressed upon me. And I'm grateful for that. It was an experience. I lived right down from the street from the church. I lived right over by the school, so there was a lot of walking going on. I also lived by the golf course where I could buy my cigarettes and everything else. So it was all kind of, my life was pretty well designed to be in walking distance and everything that I needed in my life. Very blessed to have had parents that liked to expose us to outdoor things. We had a home in a place called Rome, Wisconsin, and there was a big lake that we had a house put on there. They joined in with my grandparents to buy, and that allowed me the freedom to be going up there to learn how to do things like water skiing and snow skiing based on the time of year. We did an awful lot of bike riding and bonfires, family gatherings, and amongst all of these things, and in this Catholic faith that I grew up in, there was always fun, there was always family, and there was always drinking. Just the way, and a lot of eating too. Lots of eating. A lot of women cooking, a lot of men telling stories and smoking, and alcohol was always present in all of my life. My father and mother raised us to work hard and play hard. And I being the last of the four kids, I had the wonderful experience of being able to watch everything that they did and do the opposite and make sure I could get around every corner I possibly could and have as much fun as I could. There was a few singers that were in that time, and Cyndi Lauper was one, and she said that song that was Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I kind of followed that. I was, like I said, very blessed. There was always family gatherings, and everybody lived close to each other, and so being a part of a lot of those kind of experiences and then getting into school, I didn't feel like the misfit, but I always felt that I had a difference from a lot of people, and part of that was more of a financial thing. There was the higher class, and then there was the lower class, and I didn't see anything in the middle. It was just kind of that. So I kind of really always wanted what other people had. I always wanted to be smarter, but I didn't want to put the efforts into it. I kind of skate by on things. I think I recall like that first really big lie that I ever told, because I kind of had a little fear in me as a kid, and I tried to do what my parents said, which was to be honest in this life. But when I found out and I discovered that I could lie and get away with it, it started becoming a little bit of a common thing for me. And so I will qualify myself by, in the process of this, seeing the family grow up and being able to be assistance to them into their fun and their partying atmosphere. when we would go to Wisconsin and we would hang out up there on the weekends, I was the one who would go be the beer runner. And we lived by Stevens Point, and so that was the main beer that was always at the house. And so whenever anybody needed any beer, I was very happy to go get it for them, because I would go and get them theirs, and then I'd grab a few for me too, and I would hide them in certain various locations in the house or outside in the sand, and when nobody was looking, I had no problem going out, and usually they were too boogered up anyway, so it was not a problem to kind of go have a one or two of them, and couldn't stand it, hated beer, and if that could have been the worst beer I've ever tasted in my entire life was Point beer, but there it was, and it gave me that sense of ease and comfort. My first actual real sense of ease and comfort with alcohol came at my grandfather's funeral. The family had gotten together afterwards, and I had that ability to get my hands on some leftover drinks that were, hanging around, and I remember that feeling. And man, it felt like I had arrived. I knew that was something that I was going to have to do again and again, and it was really easy to get a handle on. It was always around the family, and so I didn't miss a beat from that point on, and I think that was a ripe old age of 11. I started hanging out with my friends and being in their homes and being that wonderful influence on their children and saying, where's the bar? And where was this? And where was that? And it became just part of a deal, where we were always going to somebody else's house, and we were always having a little bit of fun. I recall one night drinking so much slow gin, it was just an awful experience, and somebody thought somebody died after, an explosion that happened with that slow gin. And it got me in a lot of trouble with the family members, and so I was banned from a few houses as I was growing up too. And a lot of people didn't think I was going to be that way because my dad was a cop, and I was supposed to follow all the rules. And I tended to kind of go outside of the rules a little bit. I think when I was 14, I stole my sister's car on New Year's Eve and went to go pick up some friends after drinking a little champagne, and really didn't know how to use the stick shift too well, and ended up in a tree. Well, thank God nobody was killed that night, but they left me there. They all scattered like rats, and I was I was pinned behind the wheel of a GC3 Pontiac Horizon, and the arresting officer was my next door neighbor. So I don't think I suffered the consequences that most did, except the fact that I was trying to keep from my sister killing me the next morning when she found out what I did to her car. I did not suffer the consequences, and that was what made it a little bit easier to keep going out and doing some of those things and chasing that wonderful dream. And then them boys came along. Oh my Lord, boy, you guys were so cute. I just couldn't help myself, and liquid courage was going on, and just had to join the party, and I found them all. In the bars and cars and everywhere else. Anyway, and so by the ripe old age of 15, I had met the person who would become my first husband, and he was much older. As a matter of fact, he graduated high school with my oldest sister, and we were dating at that time, and it was easy to get anything I wanted. So I never really had to want for needing to get any liquor. I mean, I did all the same kind of things that people that me and the people I was hanging around with did. We'd always have that money, and we'd wait outside that liquor store over there and see somebody pull up, and they were going in, and hi. Helps when you have a pretty face, too. Here, can you get us this, and we'll pay for yours. So, and then I got the fake IDs from the older sisters, and had easy access to all that stuff. And then at that time, dating myself, Wisconsin's drinking age was 18. Illinois was 21. So I was about 30 minutes from the border. So we did a lot of cruising over the border and finding ourselves some fun. Had several little accidents, but back then Mothers Against Drunk Drivers just came out. It was just becoming something big. They used to take you home, the cops, or direct you back to just get your ass home, Jackie, instead of taking you away and giving you a DUI. And so I once again didn't suffer a lot of the consequences that most would have. So by the age of 18, I think it was my 18th birthday. I'll never forget that sucker. I was 18. It was my prom, and I got busted by the police. Cook County Police, somewhere in a grove that we used to go and play and party at, and I was in the wrong place at the right time, and finally had gotten arrested. But because I was 18 that day, they didn't call mom and dad up, and the husband-to-be's mother bailed us out that day, and they never really knew about it until I mean, he might have known about it, but nobody questioned it or brought it up. And so the fear of that, and that moment of having to, my consequences were going to a few classes, and that was it. I didn't have to pay any other fees or anything because I wasn't driving a car or anything. I was just present with somebody who had gotten arrested for having possession of some things and minor alcohol to a minor. And but it was scary enough to let me do a little bit more and hang out with the older people even longer. By the age of 21, I had been working in and out of bars and restaurants and doing a lot of drinking and having some fun and forgetting about school, forgetting about any of the things that I needed to do to secure myself a position in this big world. And I was pretty focused on becoming a wife, and the doctor's wife, as a matter of fact, because that's what that man was going to be. He was going to be an eye doctor. And so I had gotten myself into a little bit of a pickle while he was off at school and doing his thing and hanging out, working in these places. And one night I woke up somewhere and didn't know where I was, missing jewelry, missing all sorts of things, and didn't have any idea where I was. And I figured I better get the hell out of there. I started driving, and I ended up at a friggin' AA building in Palatine, Illinois. And it was right next to the library, and I just remember that I had some inspiration at that moment that said, you know, you're in a lot of trouble with your family at home, and you might want to go on in there. And so I did. I went in there, and I ended up staying and going to meetings for the next 3 months. I had kind of tried to do the best I could to get back in good graces with the family. At that time, my sister wouldn't allow me to take my nieces or nephews out for even an ice cream because they couldn't tell if I was going to be drunk or high. And that's pretty much not a good feeling for Jackie. And so I tried to do the deal, and I did for about 3 months. I didn't do anything in those AA meetings. I just looked at the boys and smoked cigarettes and drank coffee and picked out which one I was interested in. And I didn't really notice the 12 tables and the 12 steps or any of these big books or anything else. And well, needless to say, I thought I could stay sober. I went to go pick up somebody that night to go to a meeting, and he was drinking. And I thought, you know, maybe I'm making too much of this, huh? So I ended up going back to that old playground, and that man graduated, and we ended up kind of hanging out together again. And I discovered what Black Russians were all about, and what South Carolina was all about, and managed to get married and move down to South Carolina, where they had these things called blue laws. And I didn't really understand them, but I understood that I couldn't buy liquor on Sunday. I couldn't get it past a certain time during the week, and I had to go to a store with a red dot on it just to get whatever it was that I needed. And it was quite challenging to the person who just thought she could just go to the local store or the 7-Eleven and pick up whatever she wanted. But anyways, so life got good, though, for a little while. I was hanging out with those people, and I made some new friends down in Charleston, South Carolina, and I brought me with me, and surrounded myself with that same kind of lifestyle. I wanted to have fun every day that I possibly could, and we worked hard and built up a little eye care business out there, and I ended up having a baby. And through the course of that lifestyle that I was living down there, I found that I was very happy with the things that I was achieving, but I was not a very happy person about the relationships and how things were inside. And it became paramount that I was not handling things in the relationship very well because it was going completely south. And I had to make some decisions on what to do, and I did not want my daughter to be exposed into a relationship thinking that this is what good marriage is all about. It wasn't what I grew up with. It wasn't exactly everything that I wanted this child to be exposed to. And so I chose to leave that marriage. And when I did that, I was leaving the money. I was leaving all those wonderful things that had been achieved, and it was scary. It was pretty scary out there being a single parent and having to rely upon a little bit of alimony or child support and figure out what I was going to do with my life, since I really didn't have that education and everything that I needed at that point in time. I had a high school diploma, and I ended up dating a few other people and finding myself running in that realm of fear, and found myself engaged to another person who happened to be in the military background, and found my way right here to North Carolina. West End, North Carolina. How about that? Huh? It's amazing. And in the process of that, I call that my taking hostage number 2. And he was a wonderful man, but just like me. We both did a lot of drinking, both enjoyed a lot of fun, lived in Seven Lakes, North Carolina. Now, if that is not an alcoholic's paradise, I don't know what is, because it was perfect for me. Yep, I was working as a chef right there at the country club. I had the food line not even a quarter mile down the road. I turned into a wino somewhere in there. I don't know if I started actually having reactions to vodka, so I had to stop all that stuff, and I had to just become a wino. So me and Chardonnay became best friends, and it was just great. I had the lake right there. We were water skiing, having a good time, fishing. It was just wonderful. I had it all, didn't I? But there was something missing. There was still something missing, and I noticed in the process of all this drinking and stuff that you know, I didn't like to reflect too much on too many things, because everything was all of your fault, not mine. Of course, I was doing everything I possibly could to make sure everything was great in this world. Didn't recognize the fact that I was starting to drink every night instead of having a few breaks in between there. And I was mixing a little of that other stuff, because I didn't believe in hangovers. You know, if you can wake and bake, that's the best way to go for town, you know. And it was a constant deal. And it's hard, you know, keeping up, having to get all those things and making sure those are prevalent when you're a PTA mom. How does that happen, right? I served on the board in my community. I did a lot of service work in different aspects over there, and with the schools, trying to install some pretty good things into this child, because, oh my God, above all, I'm a parent, right? But yet, I'll never forget this. I went to a Girl Scout TP over the weekend at one of these Camp Okinawis, or somewhere in this area down here, and I thought, man, you know, I'm just going to bring my little mini bottles with me and stick them in my little backpack, and, you know, it'll be all right. The kids got to go to bed sometime, right? You know, and it'll be okay, won't it? I will never forget, I'm laying in a tent, in a teepee, no less, and I've got the co-leaders next to me sleeping, and I got 2 other ladies that are right there, and we're all in there, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I am feeling something on the bottom of my legs, and it starts working its way up, and I'm like, what in the hell is that? Scared the crap out of me. I'm like, and it started moving up. Something's moving up underneath me. There was a raccoon trying to get my backpack out from underneath me and slide it out the side of that damn TV. I had the flashlights on. I was screaming. I wasn't going back to bed that night at all. And that morning, I had somebody call me and get me out of here. And I was gone. Bye, Felicia. Bring the kid home, okay? I tell you what, I incorporated my drinking into every aspect of my life, and whether it was catering and I was working at golf courses, there was drinking everywhere, everything. I didn't even go down to that food line, not even a quarter of a mile in Seven Lakes, without having a sippy cup of wine with me. Even had the guys at the food line putting in those little 4-packs in the bottles to make sure that they were cold up there, so that they wouldn't have to get the warm stuff from the shelves, you know? Hey, you slip somebody $20, they'll do amazing things for you, you know? It was quite interesting. And at that point in time, a lot of things were happening that were showing me that Jackie, maybe you should sit back and look at what's going on. You know, this drinking is becoming a daily deal. You got a lot of family members that are suffering the consequences of the same deal. I had my grandfather. This man would hook up a fish line from the door of the house to the window through the garage, so that when Grandma opened the door, it would ring some bells down here in the garage where he could hear it, so that he could hide his beer before she got down them stairs. I had a father who You know, I mean, bless his heart, he was retired at 55, and this man, he would go and we would take the golf cart and we would go up to the old Randalls in Arizona, and he would get his 18 pack and he'd have two of them on the way back from Randalls and say, oh, we better go back and get another case. You know, what do you want, Jack? What do you want? Me and my dad became drinking buddies and golfing buddies, and there was no wine before 9, you know, and it was just almost every aspect of my life was there was alcohol involved in everything, and it was starting to wear a little bit, and the same thing was happening with that husband that I had been with. Fantastic, wonderful, wonderful stepfather and father, really, to my daughter, but things didn't work out, and why they didn't work out is because the reasons that I had gotten married were finally coming to light, you know. And so I had what I call a spiritual experience. It happened, and it gave me that, what they explain to us in the big book is the spiritual experience is when something happens, it's a huge upheaval, and you change all of your thoughts and your plans and your directions are going from over here, all now going over here. And so these things kept happening in my life, and they did. And when that happened, things changed, and inside of the next 6 months, my life was very different and very drastically changed again. And I was a single parent again, and that divorce went through, and the drinking got to be more and more, and the living arrangements got to be different. I ended up losing a house, moving into a townhouse. Mom and Dad helped me out the best they could, and that's when things started getting real bad, and when I really noticed. And I'd see my dad, and I'd see the progression, and it was just, I was denying it because I was paying the bills, I was taking care of making sure things were okay, and I'm a functioning alcoholic, so I really don't need those meetings or anything, right? No. Well, it got pretty bad, and I started taking more hostages because that's what I do. I got that human dependency. It's not bad when you're okay looking. Sometimes they pay homage to that stuff, right? And I wasn't looking at me. I was looking at what I needed and what I thought I needed and trying to control all these things. And I ended up making a few more bad decisions. And a lady in food and beverage, her name was Diane. I know a lot of you people know who I'm talking about. Well, Diane, she was my food purveyor. And I used to buy food from her. And I knew Diane and me went to a few food shows in the past. And boy, we got ourselves pretty racked up quite a few times, and all of a sudden Diane was sober, and she started talking to me about some of these meetings and things of that nature, and I started paying a little bit of interest in possibly going to a meeting here and there, and then I had an experience one night where some things got real bad, and there was a lady who I used to drink with at the lake down in Lake Sequoia in Seven Lakes, and her husband, well, he wasn't her husband at the time, but his name was Joey. And he used to come down to the lake, and he could sit there with all of us drinking down at that lake, playing horseshoes, and he never had a drink in his hand. And I could see he was perfectly miserable hanging out with us, too. And I had his number, and I called him up, and I said, Joey, I said, I think I might need to think about going to one of them meetings. And he said, I want you to call a woman in the program and get yourself set up and get your butt to a meeting. And just so happened that Diane wasn't available that night, and the window was going to get small. I know the window was going to get small because I'm going to need another drink here in a few minutes. And it just so happened that my daughter had a friend over that night, and that daughter's had gone through some stuff, and me and her mom briefly knew each other, but just through talking on the phone. And my daughter pointed out the fact that her daughter knew that her mom was in AA. So how does that connect? Well, it connected that night, and it was a pretty invaluable night in my life. So I made a commitment to that lady that very evening that I was going to meet her at that primary purpose group over on a Tuesday night, and I went over to that meeting that next night. Now, what happened after I made that commitment was I realized that I was about to say goodbye to my best friend, and I got scared, and I went out to the food line and got me another bottle. And I went back down to that lake because I'm going into mourning now, folks. I need some serious action here on this. I'm about to say goodbye to wine. and go to this meeting, and I ended up jumping off the boat and missing the deck and hitting the chin, and I mean, I showed up at primary purpose with a bruise from here to here on my neck. Oh, what a story that might have been. But it wasn't. I got to meet some pretty good folks that night when I showed up at primary purpose, and the first one was Jim K. I say Jim Keegan. I hope you don't mind. He's at the big meeting in the sky now. But I said, man, he sounds a little drunk right now. And I don't know if you all knew Jim, but Jim had a unique way of putting things. He would sit right here in this chair up here, and he would talk to people and tell them about getting the whole, God loves me, and he wants me to have the whole enchilada. And he was a very prominent person, but I felt so comfortable when I saw him, and then it was the start. It was the start of my journey, and it was August of 2008. And here I am, starting to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And then Diane jumped right on in there again, and she started putting me to work, because service work saves lives. And I say that not for any other reason that's what did it. If I had not done the service work and realized what I needed to do and become a part of this building and a part of every AA building I've ever been into, I don't know if I would have stayed, but I needed to make those commitments. And I remember this building, this yellow right here, Diane picked it out, and man, did she piss a lot of people off with it. It was fun, but we did it, and there was a whole bunch of people involved in that. We made chili, and we turned this building in, and it's just been, I felt like such a part of. Hadn't been through a step yet, hadn't been through a book yet or anything. And then somewhere down the line in the first month or so, I was told that I have to have this book, and here it is. It's called The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. How about that, huh? And I still have it. This is my original book right up here, and I had to buy this cover here, folks, because it's a little tattered. I use it, and it's the book of life. It's the one that I was missing. And so I got busy doing some service work in this building and getting to know a bunch of people in here and showing up at these meetings. And I found myself after about maybe a week or two to just wanting to be here. Just wanting to be here. I got some relief from just sitting in this room and listening to people talk and share their experience, strength, and hope. And I was given a sponsor. I didn't pick her myself. Somebody else picked her for me and paired me up with her, and it was very kind of them to do that. And I didn't know all the rules and regulations that y'all have at that time, so I just kind of went with the flow on that. But I noticed that I wasn't really doing the things that she was asking of me to do. And I'll be very honest with you, I felt very uncomfortable with it because she was half my age. I don't even think she was 21 at the very moment that happened. And she didn't have any marriages or divorces or screwed up relationships, and she didn't have any children, and I didn't see that we had anything in common at all. And so I'm understanding, because I think I know something. I look at these steps up there, and I've already determined I'm not doing 4 and 5. So I don't have to. No. Me and God talk every other week, and when I got to drive that baby down to her dad's in that 4-hour drive back and forth, from Florence, South Carolina, and back up here. And I had predetermined a whole lot of things when I came in here that I thought I knew something about AA, and the fact of the matter is I didn't. I knew nothing. Just like that little first page in there says, it was blank for a reason. And it is what it is, but I learned and I suffered the consequence for that because I ended up drinking again. It took me 3 months to get a 30-day chip, an honest 30-day chip. And I say that in with huge regard because I wasn't very honest with myself about anything. And when I got here and realized that was the whole preface, I think it says it right back there in that spiritual experience. I got to have some willingness, I got to have some open-mindedness, and I've got to have some honesty. If I show up with those 3 things, then I got a shot at staying sober and doing this deal one day at a time. And I hadn't read that part yet, but I kept hearing it from you all. And I kept seeing things, and I started getting a little bit busy on doing a lot more listening than I was looking. Because I was still looking, because you guys are still very cute. And that was one of the attractions. It says attraction rather than promotion, does it not? Right there, right in them traditions. And I took it pretty seriously. And I had me some attraction. But thank God for that. Thank God for that, because had I not, I wouldn't have wanted to get myself looking a little bit better, dressing up a little bit here and there on a Saturday night, and taking care of myself a little better, because I wanted to come in here and I wanted to be better. And if it took me singling 2 or 3 handsome little stud muffins out in the crowd, that's exactly what it took. And it made me want to keep coming back. And I got excited about AA. And I got excited about coming into this building. And I got excited about staying sober. And that's what I needed. And so I had to be careful, because, and you're not supposed to learn about the 13th step before the first and the second and the third. And I had a lot of good ladies that were around me that were trying to point those things out to me. There was the Mary Kays, and there was the Dianes. There was oh my gosh, the Burgies, holy moly! These women grabbed a hold of my hand and they helped me get sober, and it was just absolutely awesome to find out that there's a whole other kind of love that you can start to learn about when you haven't experienced it in your life in a fashion, because you've been too selfish and self-centered to even expose yourself to it. So I took a few months. In November 8th of 2008, I took the 7th actually, I took my last drink. And I got busy saying, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to have that humiliating walk. I was sitting right next to Kirk where you were at over there, ma'am, and I had to get up, and I had to walk up here, and I had to get that white chip, and I had to get humbled real quick. After 3 months of being in here and thinking I knew something, and oh my Lord, but you love me anyways, and not one person said anything bad. They were all very happy and clapping that I got that chip. And, humiliation brings me to humble. And everything is the complete exact opposite. As a matter of fact, I found myself a sponsor back in the ladies' meeting that I had to start going to, because that's where I was directed to. I said, Jackie, you need to go to the ladies' meetings every Monday night and get your butt in there, and then go find 2 more of them out there and go to those ladies' meetings. And I'm so grateful for that, because that's where I was able to tell the truth. That's where I was able to share my experience and get that strength and that hope. And I found a woman back there that I knew that I could trust with my whole life, because I was not going to be avoiding 4 and 5 anymore. It was required for a successful consummation. And so I got busy writing, and I got busy doing, and we got busy reading. And we went through the 12 and 12, and I went through this big book here with many people, to include a lot of people sitting in here tonight. At a 6:30 meeting on a regular basis, we did that. And I got busy doing. I didn't need to understand anything. Those things started to come through a little bit, but truly learning something instead of blaming the rest of the world for everything and not picking up some tools and using them became a way of doing things in my life. And it was amazing that when I stopped taking all of your inventory and I just started taking my own, that everything got a lot brighter in my life. Even after realizing what kind of things that I had done in my life and what I needed to do to repair that. And being honest, it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. This way of living, this design for living that AA had offered me has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. And it's a game changer. And the only way that it worked was because I did it. Shut up, Jackie. You're sick, you know nothing. And my sponsor told me that if you don't pick up the phone to at least call me, or one of the 20 women that are listed in your book, do the opposite of what you think. And you might have a chance at staying sober. And it works. It absolutely worked, because it took me a while to get that phone picked up sometimes. And I didn't want to have to say I had done wrong. And I didn't want to have, but man, I tell you what, I did what she said to do, and the next thing I know, I find myself in a position of neutrality, and I'm not having to be faced with worried about having a drink. And I go through that process, and holy crap, the obsession is removed. I used to stay in this building sometimes on Friday and Saturday nights. We had an 11 o'clock meeting in here because I was too scared to go home, because my car might automatically turn into the food line to go get some wine. I never gave myself permission to realize that I do not have to listen to the other side of my brain. And then I had to get it real simple. I had to bring a little God into it. And realized that, I can say God is a group of drunks with the gift of desperation and good orderly direction, but I had to make God my friend, and I had to start doing a lot of talking to him, and it became wonderful. I mean, heck, Richard, I was just telling him, I said, I still have my cheat sheets in here. This right here is a big book, cheat sheets of prayers and direct things that I can say to and when, until I could establish that relationship that I have today with the God of my understanding. And I love it, man. I absolutely love it. And I went through this process in a hurry. It's like I woke up one day, and the next thing I know, I'm a year sober, and I'm telling my story, and I am free. I was absolutely free, and it was phenomenal. And I never thought I wanted to trade that in, and I hadn't, because for all that period of time, while I was looking at all them boys, I found one, by the way. Yeah. And that's what happened. I decided I got myself into a relationship in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was going to be great. And God must have inspired all of this stuff. I found my next soulmate. And I did. At that point in time, it's exactly what it was. I absolutely thought he gave me an opportunity to have another relationship in my life and not screw it up the way that I screwed the other ones up. And I went through the process, and well, unfortunately, it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to work out. And I was just talking with somebody this afternoon about that. There was a lot of ups and there was a lot of downs. And when I stopped, to thine own self be true, things got bad, and I ended up drinking again. I'll never forget that. It was March 7th, 2017. I was at a catering event that I had done for many, many years, and he was with me, and drunk as a fart, and one of the ladies there said to me, she goes, Jackie, I've known you for a long time, 22 years. I've never seen you this unhappy. And I took a drink that night, and I got even more unhappy. And I had stayed away. What was it? What was it that happened that brought me to that drink? I stayed away from AA. I didn't want to live the lie. I didn't want to walk into the buildings of the people in the meetings and tell them that everything was okay when it wasn't. I didn't want to go and participate in the meetings anymore because I didn't want to hear anybody ask, how is Pat?
Hey.
Didn't. That's just the truth. I stayed away from it all because I was humiliated that I didn't see it. I didn't see any of it. And here it was. So it was what it was, and I did a little bit of soul searching after that, and I got together with my sponsor, and we went through and we inventoried that entire relationship from day one all the way back as far as I could, right down to the point where I recognized that there was a point in my life before I had gotten married where I needed and should have listened to exactly that divine inspiration that I didn't, because I wanted it my way instead of his way. And so when I say his way, I was talking about God's way. It was Jackie's will. I wanted my Cinderella story, and I was willing to do whatever I needed to get that. And I compromised myself, and in that respect, I compromised my life and my sobriety. So I had to go through and do the things that you guys tell me to do in this Design for Living, and when I did that, I cleared it all out. God found a moment for me to be called back into Alcoholics Anonymous after I sulked in it for a little bit. And I got down to Texas. My mom had fallen, and I figured it was time to get sober again. So I did exactly what AA taught me to do here in Texas, and I got busy in a home group. I found me another sponsor. I went through the steps again and again, and I started sharing meetings, and I got sober again, and this time I had to do some more because, it tells us, I don't know how many times in this book it says to seek, but at least seven that I know of. And how many times does it tell me to read that spiritual experience? At least 6 that I know of. And I had to get them imprinted on my brain again and get back to the basics. And those basics brought me to discovering a little bit more about another avenue in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I don't know about anybody else, but the whole God thing may not have worked for me had I come in here and do that. What really grabbed a hold of my attention was the fact that these two guys, this Bill and this Bob, these two human beings, just like us, fallible human beings, got together and created something that has worked magnificently for the past 89 years. And it involves no money. no exchange of that, and it just involves human kindness, love, service work. And the history, if I go back, and I have, has led me into other readings that have brought me a lot closer to understanding that a lot of the things and the steps that we go through are wonderful suggestions, but they came out of other things, and a lot of that came out of the Sermon on the Mountain. And that book carried me to a whole new level of my sobriety and my conscious contact with the God of my understanding, and a whole new inside of happiness and peace that I had not even experienced before in my sobriety of 8 years. And I'm just going to keep going with it. As a matter of fact, somebody handed me a book tonight. Thank you, Richard, for another book for it, because if I stop seeking, then I'm going to be missing out, man. I need to be right where my feet are in living this one day at a time deal and not missing anything. Because I've missed a lot in my past, because I was always busy going over there or in your business over there or trying to control that over there. No. Just be right where I'm at right here. And I do have a sponsor that does drill into my head that I am not promised tomorrow. So I better take care of today. And through the process of going through that book by Emmett Fox and going through it with my ladies and other book studies, I could pick out my big book areas, and I can pick out these things, and it gives me a lot more depth and weight that made me want to soul search a lot more and practice these tools a lot more. A lot of people say, what are the spiritual tools that we lay at your feet? Let me tell you something. The first one is tell on it. If I tell on anything that's going on in my life right off the bat, and I just get that person on the phone, no matter what, how big or small, that thing is broken in half, and it never fails. And as soon as I take the process of inventory and I move along with that, then I can come to a solution. I do not have the luxury as an alcoholic to be able to make decisions and do things in my life without following the process that was established by Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I want to, I can. I mean, I certainly have that choice. If I want to go step in that pile of shit over there, there it is, Jackie, go for it. You can do cartwheels in it if you'd like. It's still going to come up stinking, right? So, it truly amazes me that I can see how God has worked in my life over the years, but I never would have saw it had I not gotten to AA and realized that I needed to go and take a look at all these things. Getting busy in life out there was all about the outside making you happy to the inside, but it never made me happy. I had to get happy from the inside to get to the outside. And that, my friend, is what it was all about for me. And having that piece right there is exactly the equivalent of that sufficient substitute for alcohol. And I feel that maybe I might have been really happy like that as a kid before I ever took a drink. But I sure gave it away when I took that first drink at 11. And I have finally discovered what being happy from the inside out is all about. And I tell you what, it makes you really nice looking too. There's a little glow. And you can see this stuff in other people. When I work with all these other different ladies, and I have worked with many different women over the past 16 years of my life. And I have seen some transformations in men and women that absolutely has been a bond that will never, ever, ever go away. It's just beautiful to see that somebody and to know somebody honestly and truthfully. You don't get to hear conversations that you hear in Alcoholics Anonymous out there anywhere else. Anywhere else I've been, I don't know about you guys, but it takes Alcoholics Anonymous for me and the relationships that I have discovered in here that are based on truth and love and honesty to just keep going. And I thrive in it. Today I got here at 1 o'clock today because it's the Keeping It Sober group day today, and I went down in the basement and taking care of some of the boxes and stuff so that we can take this tree apart next Saturday, and I cleaned the refrigerator out because you know what, it needed some cleaning, right? A little organization, the closet, take care of some things, and go back and check the bathroom, make sure it was okay for tonight, and I had a great day. I got to talk to about 5 or 6 alcoholics before this meeting even started, and I needed to hear everything I did, because when I woke up this morning, it wasn't more than 2.5 seconds before I was a fire-breathing dragon grandmother who was ready to kill her 13-year-old son or grandson. And, it's whoo, and whoo. God, I love them, but I don't like them. And that's just okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable today and find solutions and to do what it is, but I've got to live this thing one day at a time. I got to be present so that, I don't miss it. And I hope you guys don't miss it. This is the best opportunity to learn how to live life and be really discovering what my purpose is. And working with other people in Alcoholics Anonymous has been the joy and is the center of my life these days. And I'm grateful to that. I'm grateful to a God of my understanding. And thank you guys very much for listening to me tonight.